I've been playing Pyro for a while now, but there's one weapon that I have not really used that much. And I can't believe how much I've been missing out. The thermal thruster is one of the strongest tools for mobility at Pyro's disposal. Despite seeming relatively clunky to utilize, it's quite crazy just how much use you can get out of it if you're good as Pyro. However, when this weapon came out, a lot of people, including you, the viewer, most likely, used it a couple of times, did the Pyro equivalent of a pencil jump, and then died horribly, and concluded that it's trash. Well, I'm here to tell you that if you know how to use it properly, it's an incredibly potent and valuable tool for any Pyro. And to learn how to use it properly, we will have to look at what it actually does using the weapon description. When you have the thermal thruster deployed, you can press mouse 1 to launch yourself in a powerful charge. The direction in which you get launched is determined by the direction and the angle you aim at. We can separate the launch in 3 phases. During phase 1, you go slightly above the ground and point your mouse in the direction you want to go. During phase 2, the game finally locks in your direction, and after this sound is played, any further mouse movements will not change the direction you go in. Then you launch forwards and cannot air strafe until you end up in phase 3. The charge has been fully consumed and you start to fall. You can tell whether you entered phase 3 or not based on the falling sound. Oh, and you also can Goomba stomp people when you land on them for a high charge. Unlike what some people have said before, you can actually air strafe during the phase 3 of the charge. You just can't do that in any of the other ones. Speaking of things you can't do, you also cannot use another charge while you are in phase 3 until your feet touch a surface, be it a solid floor or a player's head. While you are in the air or in the water, you cannot use another charge. So, how about we talk about some of the uses of the thermal thruster? Mobility is extremely important in TF2, especially as Pyro. No matter which loadout you pick as them, you have to consider your movement options. A couple of popular options for Pyro include the detonator and the power jack, both of which sacrifice your damage and replace it with a tiny bit of additional movement and some other utility. The thermal thruster blows the added mobility of both of these options completely out of the water. Pyro now has the ability to cross some jumps that are usually only available to Soldier. There are so many pathways and opportunities for kills that open up to you with the thermal thruster equipped. You can get a couple of kills right next to the whole enemy team and immediately escape back to your backline. With careful timing and good movement, you can reliably get behind the enemy team and cause trouble for them in the backline, ambush them, or simply distract them for long enough so that your team can push. You go from being a support defense class with okay speed to being a roamer with a high pick potential. So what are we waiting for? Let's go ahead and jump right Yeah, we're gonna have to talk about a couple of the downsides of this weapon. The first downside is, well, you're looking at the screen. The weapon itself is a downside. You do not have a secondary weapon. As a Pyro, whenever you play as them, you need to either have a secondary way of dealing damage or be ready to be outranged by literally everything while you're using a weapon which is meant for close range use. Also, and this goes without saying, there are some maps in this game, especially the ones made before 2016, that just do not allow you to use it. Maps like Dust Bowl, Gold Rush, Hoodoo, and especially Junction have very little free space for movement classes. So, the thruster in those maps is just a glorified paperweight. Also, when learning how to use it for the first time, I switched to my secondary weapon a lot, which obviously doesn't do anything, so it was a cause of a lot of silly deaths. Speaking of errors when adapting, the thermal thruster has a very slow deploy and holster animation, which cannot be sped up in any way, even by using the degreaser. What all of this means, however, is that you can't just use it all willy-nilly. You must commit to a jetpack charge if you want it to be successful. The most important thing that you need to get used to is the timing of the charge. This might sound a little difficult and clunky at first, but it really isn't. The direction is picked only in phase 2. So what you can do is you can use the first phase mini jump as a way to offset your starting position and extend your full charge. Now, I did mention that you cannot redeploy the jetpack in the air or in water, but if your feet are touching the ground while you're not in jetpack mode, you can charge from anywhere. So what this means is that Pyro gets the ability to do a full velocity rocket jump while in midair, as if you are a beggar's bazooka soldier. You can also use it after you fall, which opens up opportunities for those good old "oh boy, I sure am running away" moments. By far the strongest quality of this weapon is that you can actually pick your fights a lot better than you could before. And while it is way harder to win fights as Pyro when you only have your flamethrower and melee, you can now always simply say, you know what, see you later. This in turn is going to help you stay alive and always ready to cause tomfoolery for the enemy team to deal with. Now, when it comes to which weapons I'd use with the thermal thruster, pairing it with the Dragon's Fury or Phlogistinator may be the weakest working options for this loadout, as both of them either remove or heavily restrict your air blast. However, Phlog can allow you to bomb your opponents, which is really fun and is definitely worth trying out at least a couple of times. This leaves us with Stock, Degreaser, and Backburner. Unlike what I talked about in my last video, which you should definitely check out, wink wink, the Degreaser ends up being basically a direct downgrade from Stock, since now you have no way to apply unnerfed Afterburn, and you have nothing to combo with really, and the increased switch speed doesn't really do anything for the thermal thruster or for your melee. The Stock and Backburner, however, pair perfectly with the thermal thruster. The Backburner allows you to ambush anyone with guaranteed crits from behind, and the insane added mobility of the thermal thruster can increase your survivability after a successful ambush. As for the melee slot options, because all the unlockable primaries for Pyro deal a lot of damage on their own, I would actually recommend you go with the Power Jack, as it is an all-round good option for Pyro. You can use it to roll out or escape when you're out of jetpack charges and would still like to have some speed. Now for Stock. Now, I am totally unbiased, but you absolutely should use the Axtinguisher if you're running Stock with the thermal thruster. In these past few weeks, I've been running the loadout of Stock, Thruster, and Axtinguisher, and it's been incredibly fun flying around the map and landing random combos from time to time. I also think this is a pretty good loadout if you want to learn how to use the Axtinguisher and land some combos with it, because instead of dying over and over, you can escape every attempt and try again at any point you want. It's the closest thing you can have to actual no-clip on a legit multiplayer server. I'm very glad that I discovered this movement tool for myself. Not only is it very useful for Pyro, and it introduces an actually interesting playstyle for them, it's incredibly fun and worth trying out, especially if you have never really used it before. I hope this video made you at least a little bit curious to try it out in your gameplay. Thank you very much for watching, subscribe and leave a like if you enjoyed this video. My name is Gabby, and goodbye. Cock and ball torture, Dr. Freeman. Cock and ball torture, or CBT, is a sexual activity involved.